Hi, guys, and welcome to Ctrl-Alt-Love, where all love is beautiful. We talk about switching the paradigm of relationships to be something that supports all kinds of different love. And today we are talking about the antithesis of love, cheating. So, what is the difference between polyamory and cheating? This is a conversation that people have all the time is people think that polyamory is cheating and people think that there's a separation. So today we want to clear that up. But before we talk about cheating, it's important that we go over the do's and don'ts of poly relationships. That will clear up a lot of how to recognize cheating. So polyamory adds a significant layer of complexity atop the already complex job of managing a romantic relationship. Building good poly relationships doesn't happen by accident. In addition to the normal challenges anyone in a traditional relationship will face, polyamory offers a few challenges of its own. Don't you think, Laurel?
Just a few. I would say it's a tiny bit more complicated, but it can be rewarding. But you do have to kind of follow some of these.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of do and don'ts. So the first one out of my list of 11 is don't coerce your relationship into a predefined shape. Let them be what they are. So sometimes people, particularly people who are already part of an established couple, decide what kind of relationship they want, what form that relationship will take, and then they try to fit a person into that space.
It never works.
Yeah, people are complex and every person will have his or own ideas and desires and needs in a relationship. So, I mean, this doesn't work. I mean, Laurel, have you tried like fitting people in?
Yeah, it definitely. I think that's one of the rookie mistakes that myself and a bunch of other people have made when we're like, okay, well, here is the list of predefined, preconceived notions that I have about relationships. So obviously my poly relationship should fit into this as well. It just kind of creates room for resentment. So you really do have to just take each relationship as it comes and kind of see where it goes, quite frankly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, but that's the beautiful thing. A lot of people don't realize how awesome that is. So there's been kind of a movement towards the relationship anarchy aspect. And I think that a lot of people are drawn to this just because I think it really describes what polyamorous relationships are supposed to be like. It's like playing Russian roulette. I mean, except for,
you don't die.
Yeah, you don't die. But I mean, oftentimes it can be like a very precarious situation. You don't know what you're getting into. You want to take it slowly, but it's sometimes you don't really get to control that because love is love, and it's just got a very dizzying effect. But relationship anarchy really describes a lot of how I feel about relationships, in that it's really hard to just say like we love each other or how we feel at this point in time. And I've got so many different relationships that are at different points and different spectrums and are headed different places. And I don't know where they're headed. And I don't plan this stuff out. It's not like I just sit down and go, oh, I need a partner to fill this role in my life. I'm going to go look for that person. I will say, I have a friend that already does that and I'm already romantically interested in them, I can't like put them in a spot. So that's why I like relationship anarchy.
The thing that's funny about that, as we go on, you'll learn that Lauren and I have just slightly different types of polyamory styles. I tend to be hierarchical, so that is a question that I struggle with pretty frequently. The whole like, well, how far do I go with this? Normally, again, I still let things go where they will. It's just kind of the exception of like, well, this is the thing that I have with this particular person, like my my husband to be kind of thing. So we'll get into that later. But with number 2, do you want me to go through that, or would you like to?
Yeah. What is number 2?
Number 2 is about not keeping score. This is a big one. Oftentimes, we may be tempted to try to turn multiple relationships into a tallying game. Fairness operates on a global level when it comes to relationships, not a local level. There may be times when one partner, for whatever reason, is going through a crisis, like say in the middle of the night, one of your partners calls you if you had like a primary partner and you're living with them, but your other partner calls and they're like, I need to go to the hospital right now. It's not like you would reason it out. You'd be like, oh, well, I took you to the hospital last time, but this time, you know what I mean? Or if they're facing problems or for whatever reason needs more support and attention than your primary or the partner that you're with right now, you kind of make those decisions. And you really have to not keep score because then it just becomes a really terrible game. And that's not what love should be. So as long as that support is available to all the people in the relationship when they need it, it's not a question of keeping score.
Yep.
It's just what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched people keep score, and I used to do it myself when I first started.
Yeah,
Polyamorous. I mean, it's a rookie mistake we all make, and it'll just lead to unhappiness because, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. It always looks like, you know, the other person's getting more than you. And once you stop that kind of thinking and just think, you know, how is our relationship going? It's funny because a lot of people think that polyamorous relationships, and I find this in their principle and practice. When I am in a relationship with a person, I almost treat it monogamously. I mean, I spend my time with that person. I think of our relationship separately than I do all of my other relationships. While they, you know, diverge, just like my friends diverge, my relationship with each of my different friends also has its individual dynamic. And I don't compare it to my friendships with other people. I just think about, you know, am I getting what I need? And that's really what it comes down to is if you are getting what you need, then it doesn't matter what other people are getting because they are getting hopefully what they need. And if they're not, they need to ask. And if you're not, you need to ask. And I mean, this really goes a lot back to like the nonviolent communication that we talked about last episode is you need to be able to ask for what you need. Poly requires a humongous sense of maturity. And also, you need to know how to ask for what you need. And nonviolent communication really, really, really helps try and get those kind of ideas across. So do you have any other comments? I'm going to go on to number 3.
I think that kind of leads us right into number 3, honestly.
Right. So number 3 is do understand that your needs have nothing directly to do with your partner's other partner. It's usually more helpful to ask, am I getting what I need? Rather than, am I getting the same things as my partner's other partner? Not everyone has the same needs, and happiness is found more easily in having your needs met than in having the same things as the people around you. In fact, I think the goal of relationships should be in seeking to have your relationship needs met in a way that's fulfilling, not in achieving parity with everyone else. So it's really important that you sit down and ask yourself, what do I need from a relationship? And as long as you know yourself and know your needs, you'll be naturally seeking partners that fulfill those needs, polyamorous, monogamous, or otherwise. And as we've gone over in our polymono episode, poly people can be monogamous with people and they can have extremely healthy relationships. And this is, comes from people being very mature. If you are mature, then it's going to be very easy for you to get the needs that you have met. And even in a mono-poly situation, both people are going to be extremely happy. What do you think, Laurel?
Tony had just mentioned something actually in our little chat box about measuring how much you're giving to the others in your poly life as well. So making sure not just that your needs are being met, but the needs that you have are also in line with the needs of your partner. So that's, it's not, I mean, yes, if everyone acts in their own self-interest, some would argue that, how very objective of me. If everyone acts in their own self-interest, then eventually it'll kind of work itself out. But, if it is in your self-interest, like your best self-interest, to be with this person, to have them be happy and, them to be happy with you, then obviously you'll look at meeting their needs as well. So it's kind of a give and take. Just wanted to make sure that we covered that as well.
Oh, I agree. It's definitely a give and take. I mean, like I said, if you know what your needs are, you're going to naturally seek partners that have,
Mm-hmm.
either want to fulfill those needs for somebody or they have the same needs, and you're going to be able to share in that kind of parity with somebody. And so, do you want to tell them what number 4 is, Laura?
Sure, and then I'll have you kind of talk about what you did on the last episode with Katie Testa. Um, so you do have to ask for what you need. People aren't psychic. Well, most of them. Sometimes it feels like you've been with someone so long they can read your mind, but don't ever assume that. It may seem obvious, but if you don't ask for what you need, you can't expect to get the things that you need. You may go along and just figure, oh, everything's fine and dandy. We don't need to touch on this at all. If you have a need that you feel is not being met by your partner, say so. Don't assume that your partner knows. Don't start with the idea that if your partner really loved you, they would already know.
I love people like that.
If you love me, you would already be able to tell.
Can't you read my mind?
Without you saying anything. And don't assume that if your partner really, really loved you, they would already know. Just don't assume that. Don't wait for your partner to infer your needs. When you discover that your needs aren't being met, talk to your partner about it. Be like, hey, you've been spending a lot of time just kind of watching Netflix by yourself on Wednesday, and I have Wednesdays off, and I figured we could spend a little bit more time together. It would really make me happy. Instead of being like, God, we never spend any time together. You're always blah, 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 So anyway, really just talk about it. And then about the nonviolent communication for this conversation. Hopefully everyone's watched the episode from last week where you had
I hope
Katie
so.
on.
It was amazing.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that just to fill some people in?
Absolutely. So, just the brief overview, this is a language that will allow you to avoid the blame game. So, a lot of people, when they get in fights, they often use you statements instead of I statements, and they'll say, you make me feel this way. And we talked about during our emotional libertarianism episode with Leslie that you can't make anybody feel a particular way. You can be a catalyst for somebody's feelings, but you can't actually get inside anybody's head and make them feel that way. It goes along with the psychic
Here's
thing.
your hormones. I'm gonna manipulate them in such a way that you are going to feel shitty. Sorry, pardon my language. No, you can't get inside someone's head like that. You can definitely be a catalyst. In a relationship, you definitely hold a significant amount of sway and influence over your partners. And as they, become attached to you, there's this kind of little place in their head where, you are, and they do associate these feelings with you. But what's the quote by Eleanor Roosevelt? No one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Yep.
So,
we try and live that in the poly community.
We try really hard, but we're not perfect.
Right.
So you want to give them an example, just briefly, of like the you statement versus the I statement?
Yeah. So with nonviolent communication language, and even just using I statements, but I'm going to go at it from a nonviolent communication perspective. When you speak nonviolently, and there's been some confusion that it can be used for manipulation. As soon as it's being used for manipulation, it's no longer nonviolent communication. As soon as you cross that border and are trying to manipulate somebody with your speak, then you're no longer speaking nonviolently, because now you have displayed force. Now, and one of the things that we try and avoid in these kind of situations is force. So we do that in 2 ways. First, we don't expect anybody to do what we ask them to do. There's no expectation in our request. It's a request, not a demand. And a lot of people confuse demand and request. A request is when you don't expect a yes answer. You would like one, but you're open to negotiating other possibilities. Also, the other way that you avoid manipulating somebody is by not doing the process in order to manipulate somebody. If you're thinking in the back of your head, I'm going to talk to them in this certain way so that they do what I want, then you're not communicating nonviolently. You're now using the system for violent communication. It's no longer nonviolent communication. And for those who are against nonviolent communication because it can be used for manipulation, I mean, I don't know where people are on the gun control issue, but guns can be used to kill people, but it can also be used to save people's lives. And so, you know, there's two sides to every single tool that can benefit you. It can also harm you. Drugs, I mean, everybody is aware that drugs can be used to harm you if overdosed on. So all of these wonderful drugs that are helping people and saving lives and you know, helping people, especially with like mental issues, they are, you know, in large doses, they can kill you. And so it's all about understanding how to properly use the medicine.
Exactly. It's all about the person, the mentality going into it, the usage, not the actual language itself.
Right. And that needed to be said before I went on. So if you want to speak to somebody nonviolently, first of all, check out our nonviolent communication episode. But also, it would sound a little like this. So Laurel comes home, and we've been dating for a while. And I mean, this is all hypothetical, even though she's very beautiful, and I would totally.
Oh.
So she comes home, and I'm a little peeved off. Because, and this is my automatic brain, is I'm peeved off because she was supposed to be home an hour ago, and we talked about this, and I don't know where she was, but she was supposed to be home an hour ago. And so without any information, I lay into her, and I'm just like, Laurel, you make me feel abandoned when you don't show up when you say you're going to show up. And Laurel's, you know, Laurel's had this horrible day. You know, everything's gone wrong at work. She just got into a major car accident. Her car is totaled. She had to get a taxi ride home. Everything's just, and now she's like, you're the enemy. You know, I've had this horrible day, and you're just laying into me. So now it's all about who's right and who's wrong. The whole conversation turns into, I have to defend myself because now this person is attacking me. Instead, you can say it like this, because I have no information. I said, Laurel, when you don't come home, when you didn't come home at the time that we talked about yesterday, and that I asked you to, it makes me feel, it causes me to feel upset, because abandoned is another blame word. And there's a humongous list of blame words. And I want to make sure that on my new community that I'm creating for the largest community for alternative relationships that I'm working on, that I'm so excited about, I want to include all of those blame words, because it's not just about how you phrase the sentence. If you use blame words, it also goes straight down the drain. And people, so I feel lonely. You know, because that's me. I can feel lonely. There's no other person involved for me to feel lonely. So when you don't show up at the time that we talked about yesterday, or when you didn't show up at that time, I felt lonely, and I continue to feel lonely. And here's where I have to think about what my need is. And so I have to think, why am I so upset about this? And if it was because I am feeling lonely, then I need companionship. And also, I may have felt like I couldn't trust her now. So my need for trust and accountability. So when you make me feel, when you did this, you know, I felt lonely, and I felt like I might not be able to hold you accountable, or even that's a little blamey. So I felt lonely. And then I would say, I need to be able to hold you accountable and to have that companionship and communication. And so would you be willing to call me when you're not going to make it home on time? And Laurel would respond, you know, I totally understand your needs because I've not blamed her at all. It's not her fault. This is my feelings and I've owned them. And she would just say, you know, especially if she understands nonviolent communication, I got in this horrible car accident, you know, or you could start the conversation.
Or even before then. So like, let me just jump in here for a second.
Yeah, please.
I love where you're going with that, but a lot of times, like if someone comes home late, like I have lived with perpetually late people, and it really, really, to use your language, it really peeves me off. Okay, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. But I have learned that a lot of times people don't necessarily like mean to be late, and sometimes, yeah, there is something going on. Maybe they got in a car accident. So a lot of times I start the conversation with, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, I thought you were going to be home an hour ago. Is everything okay?" So it's coming from a place of concern rather than like concern for their well-being, like helping their needs to be met so they can understand how to meet your needs. And they're like, you know, so say I walked in and I was like, "Oh my God," you know, you tell me that, like, "Hey, are you okay? I thought you were going to be home an hour ago." And I say, "Oh my God, honey, I got in a really bad car accident. I'm surprised I didn't have to go to the hospital. I'm sorry I was late." And then, like, even then, that might be explanation enough for you, but you could be like, "Oh my God, I was ready to like sit here, like I felt really lonely. I didn't know where you were. It's not like your fault at all. I was, as much as I'm like glad that you're not like, you know, that you're not hurt, that you're not in a, you know, a horrible like,
how I was feeling.
This is how I was feeling, and I'm so glad that we didn't have to have that conversation."
Right.
Exactly. And then like, say for example,
another part is making sure you're on the same page.
yeah, exactly. So like if I had come home and I hadn't said anything, like I just walked in like it was no big deal, like I hadn't done anything, and you were like, "Hey, so..."
Yeah. Maybe not the best example, but I mean, that's just an example of like a conversation.
Yeah. So it is going to vary by situation, but
right.
So we're on number 6.
Yeah. So the next one is, do pay attention to the state of a prospective partner's existing relationship.
Oh, this.
So if you're considering joining a person who is already in a relationship, take a good look at that relationship. Is it in a good shape? Do people involved have good problem solving skills? How good is their communication? If the relationship has a problem, how will that affect you? Will you be the person who suddenly becomes expendable if the problems in the relationship become too great? It happens a lot. You know, a lot of people get into relationships with poly people and they haven't considered the other relationships. Actually, one of the things on my site that I'll be including is you'll be able to link to all of your partner's profiles. Of course, you know, some people will choose not to do that, or some people won't be on the system. But in many cases, you'll be able to click on their partners and learn about their partners and learn about their existing relationships. I also want to set it up so that couples can kind of talk about what their relationship dynamic is and kind of have a blog for themselves and their relationship, so that, you know, other couples or other people when they're looking for relationships can kind of see the dynamic between this partner and their relationship. So there will be all kinds of facets for that kind of stuff.
Definitely. I don't know how many relationships I've been in where there's been someone else on the other side involved, and you're like, you go into it thinking, especially as a new poly person, "Oh, we're poly. This should just be easy. Well, I'll be happy."
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy to just go ahead.
That could come back to haunt you.
Oh, agreed. I mean, it could totally come back to haunt you. It's one of those things where you know, people just assume that relationships are in a certain place from an outside perspective, and they assume that everything, you know, looks okay from the outside. But if you really spend time with a couple, especially this blog feature where couples will be able to talk honestly about their relationship and what's really going on and their rules and their contract and stuff, people will get a much better inside look. So really do the research before you get involved with couples. So Laurel, Do you want to take number 7?
Indeed, it's a short one, but it's very important. It's
Very
about not taking sides. Do
no.
not take sides. So, for example, if you were to get into a relationship with somebody who is already in a relationship and they get into a fight and say that, you become good friends with both of them, or, maybe you're involved with both of them and they're fighting, it's their fight. It's not your fight. You can offer comfort, but you can't get in the middle of other people's arguments. It's going to cause resentment. It's going to probably break up your relationship with one or more of them. And if you break up with one part of a couple, what do you think is going to happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And it's a lot like number 8. Don't make assumptions on behalf of other people. So first of all, it can sometimes be tempting to speak for the other people in your relationship or to make assumptions on their behalf. And it can also be attempting to let the bitch voice inside your head make assumptions about other people in your circle or pod. No matter how many times you have talked about your partners with them, you don't know the whole situation. So don't assume anything, and certainly don't let yourself get angry over those assumptions. The more grounded in reality you are, the happier everything will stay and the less needless fights you'll have. So don't take sides. Try not to assume where everybody is in an argument, and also don't assume that people are in an argument. I mean, like I said, while we are polyamorous, our relationships need to have a life of their own, because you're never going to be 100% involved. Even if you're a swinger, you're never going to be 100% involved in somebody else's relationship. They have their own dynamic. This is a chemical level. And so even if you're there for every single moment of the relationship, chemically, you're not experiencing what they're experiencing. So to assume that something is going on that isn't, it's just going to cause so many needless fights. Always ask. And nonviolent communication gives you a great way to ask. Use that process. Ask what's going on. Say what you're feeling about the situation, and always own those feelings. Say that they are your own. So if you see something in a relationship that looks like it's violating somebody's contract, then you need to say, this is how I felt when I saw that. I felt that it was violating the contract. And, I need to tell you. But, those are your assumptions and you need to own them. Never say that somebody's doing something and that they feel a certain way unless they've directly told you that that is exactly how they feel.
We will make one exception here if they are being overtly abused.
Yes, of course.
That's pretty easy to tell if someone is, well, if you are very close with them. Some people hide it, but some people just are pretty blatant about like emotional abuse. That's a little bit easier to tell if you have experience in that. We can probably do an episode about that as well if we need to. But
yeah, I'd like to have somebody on that really has been through abuse to talk about it. I mean, I've had like little experiences with it, but I would rather get somebody that's like a therapist to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Somebody with a degree.
Yeah, definitely. Just so we don't necessarily word anything wrong.
Great. It's not really the degree. It's just the fact that they've dedicated so much time to studying.
Yeah, exactly. So I know a lot of people with degrees who are less than qualified. But
agreed. So number 9 is don't seek to give your partner's happiness at the expense of your own. A relationship should serve the needs of all the people in it, including you. Yep. Furthermore, it's a mistake to think that you can make other people happy, particularly by sacrificing your own happiness. That road leads to codependency. And this goes back to nonviolent communication, but an aspect we didn't really talk about, which is giving yourself empathy. So you can actually talk to yourself with nonviolent communication, either out loud or internally. Don't worry, you're not crazy unless you actually respond to yourself. So,
well, actually, they just did a study that people who talk to themselves tend to be way higher IQ. So you might be crazy, but you're also a genius.
Yeah. And, I honestly, I would go insane with all the things I have to do if I didn't talk to myself out loud. So it helps me. I go through my little checklist over and over again. I think I have a small case of OCD. But anyway, So it all comes back to like giving yourself empathy and realizing what it is that you need. Because first of all, the first person that you're in a relationship with is yourself. I don't care how many other people you're in a relationship with. The most important and primary relationship you have is with yourself. And if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else.
No, how are you supposed to give anything to anybody else if you don't give anything to yourself? You won't have anything to give to someone.
Agreed. So. Agreed. So, do you want to take number 10?
Indeed.
Indubitably.
This is actually one of the things that will tie in. I know we're at about 8:30 right now, but this is perfect because we're going to get into the rest of it here. Mm-hmm. This is a big one as far as cheating. You do need to know your limits, your needs, and the things that bring you happiness. If you have set those things up, that's like your kind of boundaries, your limits. So as Lauren put it here, know thyself. And, you know, what other philosopher was that? Let's see. This is perhaps the most...
That was actually, I think it was Lao Tzu, by the way.
Oh. See, I knew you would know. But this is perhaps the most important single thing you can do in any relationship. Knowing what you want and need in order to be happy is an excellent first step in being happy. So this is a little different than, you know, forming your expectation of what you want out of a relationship. This is what I would like. This is not necessarily going to happen. And these limits are what I will not put up with. Kitty.
It's okay.
Claus.
It's okay. Yeah.
Claus.
He fell.
But I mean, how would you agree with that, Lauren? It's not so much about like setting like hard and fast. This is exactly how my relationship has to be. It's more like these are the things that I absolutely need. These are the things that I could go either way on, but I would like. And these are the things that I absolutely will not do.
Right. There's definitely like a red, yellow, green in there. And that's one of the things I'll actually be providing on my site is I want to provide contracts for people. And one of the formulas I'm going to use is in negotiating the contracts is the red, yellow, and green. And hopefully, and what I want to do is incorporate blue for the other side to edit. So obviously like one person is going to set down their side of it. And I think that what would be really cool is to eventually get it so that they can kind of merge and you can see the differences between the two and where the discrepancies are so that you can skip the whole conversation about things that you already agree on. Well, you know, you'll need to look over the whole contract at the end, but like things that other people are missing in their contracts or things people have in theirs that you don't. It'd be really cool to eventually get that kind of technology, and I'm definitely looking into that. But at this point, I want to just make it like red, yellow, and green, and red is like hard limits and hard limits. And that's one of the things we'll talk about in kink negotiation is hard limits, but we're not to kink just yet. I want to talk about love a little bit more before we talk about sex.
I actually had
all about the sex.
Yeah, in fact, most of it isn't. You gotta like negotiate these boundaries before you even get into that. But anyway,
I feel like I spend more time talking about sex than I do actually having it.
So, I actually have some experience writing out not necessarily contracts, but like lists of boundaries, and then expounding on those. Like there were bullet points, like if this situation were to arise, this is a way that you could handle it, kind of thing. Like we prepared for like every situation possible and still fought. And that's one of the things actually that Tony was just mentioning here. I love these little commentaries. In fact, I just kind of wish you were on screen with us. Gets a little heavy, but he says, don't forget that there will be fights. We're human. We fight.
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen.
We're not perfect. It's not, it's not necessarily that it's, a poly thing. It's all relationships. Sometimes, your reptilian brain is like, no, I'm gonna fight you right now. Like I have to defend myself. But hopefully, with our help, you will transcend little bit.
I know it sounds a little negative, and I don't mean to be like negative Nancy, but if you're in a relationship where you're not fighting,
There's something wrong.
Either you're in severe honeymoon phase, or you have to ask yourself, what am I ignoring? Because people are people. They're all different, and they're going to have disagreements about things. And
don't tell Jason.
It does not make your relationship bad. It's how you fight and how you handle the fighting. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, it's not technically fighting. It's like arguing or negotiating. And any of those things, I put them in the fighting category. If you're having any sort of disagreement at any level of raised voice or even not raised voice, then you are fighting.
Like annoyance.
Yeah. So any disagreement, and it's okay to have disagreements. It's not okay to play the blame game, to drag out the fight. So I recommend nonviolent communication for that. But I think that it's important to cover number 11. That's the big one. So I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Not all the problems in a polyamorous relationship are the result of polyamory. So number 11, don't assume that polyamory is the problem. It's not the solution, but it's also not the problem. If you're in a non-traditional relationship of any sort, it's easy to point to the fact that your relationship doesn't look like the norm and say, see, this is why we're having problems. But it's not always true. Even traditional monogamous relationships can have problems, but it's not. Even traditional monogamous relationships can have problems and do. Even traditional monogamous relationships have problems with resource allocation, after all. A person who's spending all his time at work is away from his partner just as surely as someone who's spending time with his other partner. And even issues that may seem at first glance to be directly related to polyamory, jealousy, for instance, might still exist even in a monogamous situation. So I was always, in fact, I was a very jealous person when I was polyamorous, incredibly jealous, because you assume that other people think the same way that you do. We all do it. We all assume that everybody thinks exactly like us, and we're often confused when people don't. I always had the urge to cheat, and that was because internally I was always poly, and so I assumed that my partners had the same urge and were probably acting on it. And that might have come from the fact that I did act on it a few times. I never took it over a certain line. It was never more than kissing, but it still made me feel really bad. And I would often think that, my partners were cheating on me, and I was super jealous. Now I don't have to think about that because they know if they come and talk to me that I'm pretty open to pretty much any situation. And I realize not everybody's like that, but for me, I just want people to be happy. And I like when my loves all do their thing and are happy, mainly because I'm too busy to moderate my boyfriends.
You're like, go have fun. Don't be stupid.
Please don't. I don't even want to have a conversation. Just do whatever. We'll talk about it later. I don't care.
Good to you.
That's how I am. I'm very chill about it. But I know that that's not the case for everybody, and I understand that. But
on the flip side of that, though, there was one that was kind of out of order, and I think we should definitely cover it because it's not always that polyamory is the problem. However, polyamory isn't always the solution either.
Yes, we did skip this.
We did skip that.
Somewhere in my mind, I think it's because I've already written these notes. I thought that we just did that one. But yes, very
nope. And I looked at it and I was like, wait, that's not where that's supposed to be. But this is perfect timing for this because so, the expression about how, well, if you get married and you have a broken relationship, then suddenly someone decides they want to have a baby because they're like, that'll fix our marriage.
Yo.
So it's kind of the same with polyamorous relationships. You're like, oh, our relationship is broken. Let's just add more people. And I personally have been in a relationship or two where that's been a tactic on both sides. We're like, you know what? This isn't working out. We're going to spend more time with other people. And it just got worse. It masked the problem. So it can be very, very rewarding. It's a really rewarding way to improve a good relationship. Like if you're not poly already, you know, it can be a little exciting. I love your wording here. But as surely as night follows day, it will definitely expose the problems in a relationship as well. It takes a whole lot, I think it takes a whole lot more communication than a lot of other relationships do, because you don't just have to worry about you and your partner. You have to worry about you, your partner, your partner's partners, your other partners. You know, like there's a whole another level of communication. So definitely not a good way to mend a damaged relationship. You're just going to be bringing in more complications. So if you are thinking about, you know, polyamory is going to solve all our problems, maybe you should take a look at what the root problems of your relationship are anyway.
Yeah.
So
More is not less, guys. More is more. And if you add more, you don't get less problems. You get more problems, because now all of your issues that you have with your current partner that you just opened your relationship up to and became polyamorous, now everybody in your entire circle gets to feel all that anger and hate.
wow.
Please don't do that, because
Yeah.
I have been a part of relationships like that and I don't like it. It's not fun when two people are fighting, because I can feel it every time we go out on a date. I will not date you if you have problems in your current relationship. Don't ask me to be a part of your relationship, and certainly don't ask me to fix it, because again, your problems are your own in every one of your relationships. As much as we are poly, I don't want to be involved in every single fight you guys have. It's not really fun. And it's not why I'm in a relationship. Otherwise, I'm just going to be your counselor or your advisor or your moderator.
It's like, certainly I could do that, but like I don't want to also be sleeping with you or romantically involved with you if I have to like chastise you both and put you in a corner.
Well, I think I could make like a special category for moderator with benefits.
Moderator with benefits? That would be horrible. Oh my God. All right.
I mean, how cute are they? But anyway, I'm joking, obviously. So basically, these rules are important, and why we're going over this in the cheating episode, and a lot of people are like, why are we not talking about cheating, is that if you follow this list and stick to the agreements that you made in negotiation, which is what we'll talk about in the next episode, you're keeping to your side of the deal. And this list is going to help you in cheating situations. It's going to help you not cheat. It's going to help you because you're making not only a contract with this person, but all of the other people you're dating and the people that they're dating. And so it's very easy to cheat on that agreement, because now cheating isn't defined as sex. Cheating is defined as, and it might be, I mean, if that's your contract, but it's defined as anything breaking the contract. And so if you haven't discussed it, it is a no. So Laurel was talking about that earlier. She designed a contract and they tried to specify every situation. You're not going to be able to do that. I mean, Laurel's amazing.
Let me see if I can.
I'm debunking that now. You did not cover everything.
No, absolutely not. And you're not going to. You can try to plan for every contingency, but the thing about it is sometimes something is going to feel wrong. And you have to decide for yourself, like, whether it's just that you're programmed that way, like, this feels wrong because I didn't used to do this, like I was monogamous, or this feels wrong because it actually is dishonest and disloyal. So like Lauren was saying, if you don't discuss it, you don't do it. And I've had partners who did not give me the courtesy of actually discussing these things. Well, what's a good example here?
You know, there's a saying, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Rather than permission.
And that I can tell you, in a poly situation, you are going to get burned if you follow that principle. Yes, in a work environment, that might work. But with me, like especially with me, if you don't tell me that you're going to do something, now oftentimes I'll just be like, okay, yeah, whatever. I don't have time for this. Just do your thing. I trust you. Because my partners are normally not as crazy as I am. So I assume that whatever they do is something that I do anyway. So, and that
like, don't do anything I wouldn't do.
So, yeah, pretty much. I'm just like, just don't do anything I wouldn't do. I don't care. Just go. And because I'm like working on projects, I'm busy. So
see, I always tell people don't do anything I would do.
That's a good.
Don't do anything I would do. You'll probably be safe. Yeah, on that kind of thing. So, what's the example here? I've brought this up before. It's not ever so much that the act itself was the problem, and I think that's why in monogamous relationships people get so worked up about cheating and sex. People are attracted to other people besides their spouses, and they're so ashamed and they're so hardwired to think that way that they're afraid to talk about it with their, their wife, their significant other. When if they really wanted to be monogamous, even if they, were thinking about cheating, if they really enjoyed their monogamous relationship, but were in a relationship where they could openly discuss, like, hey, I find this person really attractive, and it really like bothers me, and I was really afraid that you would be mad at me if I told you about it, but I'm a human being and I have needs and wants, and I just wanted to share that with you. I've heard of people like just coming out and telling their spouses that, and it fixed a problem. Like they didn't have to act on it because they knew that they weren't going to be judged for actually feeling that way.
Yeah.
Once they go down that kind of spiral of like, well, I'm just going to be judged for feeling this way anyway, so I'm pretty much screwed, so I might as well do it anyway. And then that comes into the whole better to ask forgiveness than permission. So we're a very, very repressed culture when it comes down to relationships and sex. So
yeah, and I want to move forward with cheating, but it's really important to cover that there's a difference between people who like to cheat and people who love other people and like other people. And so, I think there are people out there. I don't think there are a lot of them, but I think there are people out there that enjoy the feeling and thrill of cheating. And Tony and I are going to be doing an entire episode on the thrill of cheating. And those people are not poly. And a lot of them will try poly and think it'll fix the situation. And they'll break the rules in poly and think that it's going to turn out better, but it's still cheating. You break the rules, you're cheating. Now, one of the solutions I offer, and I really don't like advocating this because I just don't like this type of relationship, but a don't ask, don't tell relationship could maybe potentially be a very healthy situation for people who like to cheat, because it gives you that thrill of being able to go behind your partner's back. But at the same time, you've already agreed that that's the relationship you're going to have. And I think that, people can find people that enjoy that thrill as much as they do and have healthy relationships. So polyamory, while it shouldn't be a fix, could potentially be a healthy relationship for those type of people. But I think it's important to define cheating, especially in a poly situation. If your partner doesn't hold up their end, or they break the agreement, then they're not being a good poly partner, sharer, or they are cheating. So how do you know when your partner is cheating and when they're being poly? Put simply, poly is about agreement and consent. Cheating is about lying and betrayal. So ask yourself, is your partner following the rules you made in negotiation, or have they asked for a renegotiation? If they've not done either of these, then they're cheating. That's it. It's really simple. However, when people accuse your partner of breaking the rules, accuse your partner of breaking the rules, they need to be right. Don't assume that something is happening that isn't. Also, make sure that there are not other fights that you're carrying over into your poly relationship. Is it personal or is it poly? You need to be clear on this. And as long as you're following the do's and don'ts I gave above, you're conducting the most healthy poly relationship that you can. But it doesn't mean that your relationship with that particular partner is healthy, or that they're being a good poly partner, or even regular partner to you. If this is the case, you need to re-examine the relationship. But this is a topic that we covered in a previous episode about what is poly. We outlined what a good poly partner is and isn't. However, if they've broken your agreement, we need to focus on the cheating. Now we are going to talk about some examples of that so that you know what it looks like to cheat. We're obviously not going to cover everything, but my example, I had a partner for a while that we didn't really talk about negotiation because I didn't really know too much about it. And I didn't really know what my rights are. And my right in a poly relationship is to have open, honest communication with this person and to be able to negotiate my rights. And your rights only extend as far as you have negotiated them, or anything that you've never negotiated. Now, if you tell somebody something's okay and they do it, you don't get to be mad at them. That's not cheating. But there was a partner of mine who spent a lot of time with one of his exes. And I guess somewhere along the line, he felt like he had made it clear to me that they were seeing each other again and that they were sleeping together. And I wasn't aware of this because it was never explicitly told to me. And I was peeved, not because he wanted to see her again. That was perfectly okay. What I was upset about was that he never told me that he had a new partner. And so, first of all, safety was a concern. Did she get tested? And then there was, the fact that I felt like he didn't care to communicate with me. And when you don't communicate with me, I assume that our relationship is not important to you, because you don't have time to communicate something that I'm probably going to be totally cool about. And I was fine with it. And she and I became friends. But it was one of those situations where they were hanging out, and apparently he thought that I just read his mind and that they were seeing each other. So they hooked up, and a few times before, the conversation just kind of randomly came up that they were sleeping together. And that's how I found out. And I felt very betrayed by that situation. We talked about it, we got over it, and we'll talk about like how to heal from cheating in a minute. But that was really my situation. Like, I have clauses in my negotiation that if you enter a new relationship, I not only need to know, but I would like to meet her if you're going to go out with her at least 3 times. And so and especially if you're planning on sleeping with her, I'm flexible on the 3 times, but I would like to meet her before you sleep with her. Because I have bad experience with crazy women, and I would just prefer to make sure that she's not going to be crazy. Because sometimes, no offense, men, but you do a really bad job of picking out women. Sometimes they seem totally normal and they're absolutely fucking crazy. So, and no offense, but if you're willing to date me, who else are you willing to date? I mean, I'm pretty so like, I gotta be careful about the kind of women that you're willing to date because you're dating me. That's scary. So that was mostly a joke, but somewhat true.
Well, sometimes you can only handle one of you. So yeah, I know I could only handle one of me.
Why would you even want one of me? I mean, seriously, that's like a handful.
Aw, you love you.
I live on Facebook. But Laurel, I mean, tell us about an experience where somebody...
Oh, I'm trying to think of my most horrific one, because all of them are heartbreaking.
They are, and it's always heartbreaking every time.
Always heartbreaking. I think there's 2 that really stand out in my mind, and I'll start with one, and if we don't have time, I won't use the other one. But
in the world.
I had a crush. I was in a relationship with a guy, and I had a crush on someone that I thought we should have a threesome with, very casually, and kind of see where it went from there. And she was very amicable to the whole thing. And so my my now ex took her out to dinner, and then had sex with her before coming home to like have a threesome with us. And I didn't find out about it for 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, until she mentioned it offhand, and I knew.
Wow.
And that evening, like, we had a threesome, and we were all really happy and enjoyed ourselves and everything. But the fact that my partner couldn't tell me for 3 months, and I found out from my then new girlfriend, And she was so mortified. She was like, "Oh my God, I thought you knew. I thought he told you. Like, this is awful. I am so," like, she was so apologetic. And like,
I'm sure she
when,
was.
no, definitely. And then like, when I confronted him about it, he was he was really upset, but had a very like big like guilt complex. And I think that's one of the reasons that um like we still hang out, but we don't really see each other anymore because there's just this like, oh, I can't tell you, I can't, he's poly. He's doing a lot better, but like has this weird thing where he can't, like, he feels ashamed to actually talk about it. So then he does the whole ask for forgiveness thing. And I'm sorry, but waiting 3 months to actually fess up to sleeping with someone without like telling me is not okay. I think I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that because that's about the worst one I can come up with.
Right. I mean, I have a rule, and I don't, I obviously don't know what your contract is, but one of the things that is my rule is because I like to play with other couples and I like to have, you know, people play with us, with some of my partners and me. I enjoy that. But one of the rules that I have, and something in my comfort zone, is if we play with a person, then you're not to play with them separately.
Yeah.
Very like I want a particular level of control about who's sleeping with who. And, I'm very cool about whatever you want to do with those people, but I like to know who they are. And if we're sleeping with them, and I can't really explain it, and I don't know why it drives me crazy. And I wish I could. I wish I had like a logical explanation for it, but I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of
It
my partner
sounds
with somebody we're playing with together. Because to me,
it sounds like you're not on equal footing. Like you want to maintain like y- you like your partners to go and do like what they want and make themselves happy and everything. But to me it sounds almost like if you play with a couple, that's like something that you share, That's not something that I don't know, it would seem like, I don't know. It would
yeah.
seem almost like unfair or like a little bit behind your back if they were to form like this relationship that was outside the boundaries of playing or,
Yeah. And
having.
I think that's really it right there is I think it's that it bothers me, the idea that I brought this person in to have fun with us and to have a relationship with us. And now you've moved that relationship from a relationship with us to a relationship with you and a relationship with us. And now it's deeper than like us playing around. Now you've turned our play partner into your partner and your girlfriend, and so now it's no longer play, and now
Which
there's a
might be
different dynamic.
fine,
And yeah, that might be fine, and I've had comfortable situations where
but if you didn't talk about it.
yeah, I mean, and I've had I was a swinger for a while, and we had a girl that we saw on a regular basis, and she was very close to both of us, and we really cared about her, and she meant a lot to us, and but it was something we shared as a couple. And maybe coming from that swinging background, maybe coming from having that kind of relationship where she loved us as a couple and not us separately, I loved that experience, and I long for that kind of experience. And when we spend time with her separately, it's changing the dynamic of the relationship to be not that kind of dynamic. And that's what I would really enjoy. And of course, my partners are allowed to see whoever they like. The only thing I have is, if we're going to play with a person, then you can't play with them by yourself. And I might be willing to renegotiate that at some point. All of my negotiations are up for renegotiation. However, don't do it behind my back, because that is like dump worthy. I literally will dump you over that.
Dumped.
Like, immediately. It's not a hard limit. It's definitely a yellow. Like it's definitely a yellow for me. It's like I get very emotional about it. It would take like a long time for me to be comfortable with it. And I think it just comes from that swinger background, honestly. But I think that And I was hoping that some people would call in and kind of talk about, ask us whether it's cheating or not. And I definitely want to do an episode where people can ask us if it's cheating. But it should be really clear cut, guys. If people are breaking the contract or they haven't talked to you about something and they do it, that's cheating, period. Because now you're supposed to be faithful to the contract and the agreement. And if that agreement says no sex and you have sex with somebody else, sorry, that's you're cheating. And just because we're calling ourselves poly doesn't mean that there's some standard set of rules of things that you're allowed to do now that we're poly.
It's the same with monogamy. Like, you have your boundaries, you have your, I mean, like you were saying in a previous episode, you had guy friends that you would like kiss on the cheek or whatever. You were close with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So like that was never a thing. But in most relationships, you do have to set like that standard, like what is the boundary. Sometimes you don't know what it is until you cross it. And at that point, it's like, oh, okay, let's talk about this. Not like, oh, okay, I'll never do that again, but oh, let's talk about it. What happens, maybe moving on from that, what do you do after someone cheats on you? Or if you cheat?
Right. So cheating is one of those things that really can shatter your world, but it's really up to you what happens after that. And there's no right or wrong answer. Let's be clear on that. You can choose to fix the relationship or you can end it. This can depend on how bad the transgression was, how sorry they are, how willing they are to change, etc. Those who heal after adversity focus on finding a solution to the problem instead of focusing on the problem. In other words, if you're someone who can't let go of the idea that your spouse was unfaithful to you, you'll have a really hard time healing. If you're someone who focuses on rebuilding the lost trust and stay open-minded about finding solutions, you're more likely to save your marriage and heal. The good news is we can all find solution-oriented folks, or we can all be solution-oriented folks and find them. We can all develop the insight needed to work through marital infidelity and either save a marriage or move on to rebuild and be productive in life. And this applies to poly too. And so the first place to start is with empathy for yourself and your spouse. I truly believe that the first step to healing from any kind of betrayal is an understanding of not only your own feelings, but the feelings of the one who betrayed us. Nonviolent communication can help you here. It's not only a tool for talking with empathy to others, but also a tool for talking with empathy for yourself. It allows you to speak about what you need and make plans for meeting those needs instead of engaging in blame speak, like blaming yourself for what's gone wrong or blaming the other person. A few other things to consider. Your thinking during times of emotional stress is distorted. So be sure that your reaction to your spouse's or your partner's infidelity is measured and sensible and not out of anger and pain. As easy as that is. Infidelity is not the end of the world. It is the end of your world as you know it, but there is a life after infidelity. And accepting that can play a major role in how well and how quickly you heal. If you engage in doomsday thinking, the idea that infidelity is the worst thing that could have happened to you, you will continually live with the belief that he or she will do it again, that another marital disaster or partner disaster is right around the corner. The trick is to remember that as a result of infidelity, you have the opportunity to strengthen your marriage or your partnership or move on to a new life as a stronger person. Bottom line, if you're negative, hostile, and angry, you will be in pain for a really long time. If you're emotionally resilient, you're able to accept that the infidelity is nothing more than a blip on your life path that will heal you more quickly. So remember, it's not your whole world. It just feels that way.
It just feels that way right now. I will say this, it does. There was an expression that I used to say all the time during a couple of my relationships that just didn't go too terribly well, and it was, when do you throw in the towel? Because I am forgiving to a fault.
Oh,
Like,
girl, yeah.
I really, really want people to be happy. And I have stuck it out for years in relationships where I'm like, okay, well, I will forgive you, and here's what we can do moving forward. They'd make some kind of change, and then a couple months later, just be right back at it. So you do have to, like, know again, what your limits are, what you're willing to put up with, how long you're willing to put up with it, and be like, okay, well, this is like the third time you've done this. I've given you a space to be open and honest with me. You can't do that, so I think we need to break it off. You do have to lay down and enforce your boundaries. You can definitely come back from, infidelity, like you or your partner being unfaithful, and like actually make a change about it. But if there's something else going on, like someone has like some type of inferiority complex or some type of like really deep-seated guilt or something that they're acting on, then they probably need to see a therapist rather than being in a relationship or while being in a relationship. So one of the hardest things that I always think about, oh man, I have a lot of body issues. I used to be an entertainer of sorts. So, you're used to getting judged constantly in how you look. So it's a really big thing for me to fall back on. If something is going wrong in my relationship, I'm like, what did I do? What is there something wrong? Like, what do I need to do? I just have this urge to fix it. Um,
And to blame yourself.
Exactly. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, you need to have
Sometimes,
empathy for yourself.
exactly. So don't come at it from like, I'm not good enough. If you love yourself and you know that you are good enough, you can come from a place of understanding that maybe the other person doesn't love themselves as much. I don't know. That's my 2 cents on it. Um, like I said, it's really important that you know when to throw in the towel. As harsh as that sounds, because I stuck it out for years in less than stellar relationship style because I was just like, okay, we'll try this time. We'll try this time. We'll do it again. We'll try this time. No, no. Um, I know I keep babbling here, but there is another thing I
No.
was thinking about on my drive home from work today.
Yeah.
And that is for those of you who have watched the episodes before and heard me speak, if not seen me speak, you know that I am getting married. I am engaged to a wonderful man, and a lot of people think that we're going to be monogamous after we get married. Nope, not the case. Um, Not the case at all, and he is perfectly fine with that. But he's monogamous-ish. He's
Ish.
polycurious at this point, but curious. Whatever, he'll get
So
there.
cute.
Uh, I'm just like, yeah, threesomes. Terrible. I'd be lying if I said that wasn't slightly true. But um, I was thinking on the way home, I've told him before, I'm like, would you ever want me to be monogamous? And he always says the same thing. He's like, sometimes I think it would be nice, but then I think that if you were monogamous, you wouldn't be who you are. And I love who you are. So, no, I don't want you to be monogamous. And as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, could I be monogamous? I'm like, I don't think I could. I, I think like if we tried to be monogamous, I think I would have the urge to sleep with someone else and I'd fall back into a rut of being like, "Oh God, I have to like cheat on someone." I would feel like I was going to cheat on someone. So then I had to think about like, well, is it actually cheating? And then I realized that it isn't because I don't sleep with or form outside relationships with people that I don't love or care about in some way. So it's not just that I'm having a fling. Like, there's another person that I'm like madly in love with right now and have been for a while. Um, And circumstances being what they are, we're not really in a relationship right now. But that doesn't mean that I just like stopped loving them. That doesn't mean that I'm not in love with them anymore. Like as deeply as I am just because I'm, you know, in a
Yeah.
polyamorous relationship. But anyway, like I said, babbling.
No, I agree. I mean, it goes back to what we were saying in the episode. Don't ever enter a polyamorous relationship hoping for anything but polyamory. We're always poly. We will be, that's just who we are. We can choose to be monogamous at some point, but very few of us actually will.
Also with the monogamy thing, if you do get into a relationship with a polyamorous person and they say that they're going to be monogamous, if for some reason it comes to the table later in life where they're like, I really connected with this person, I don't know if I can be monogamous. I don't know if I can continue to be monogamous right now. I would really like to form, a deeper connection with this person. Really be open to renegotiating.
Be
So,
reasonable. Yeah. Because I mean, they've been trying to do good things for you. So, it's about thinking about love at the end of the day, and what is going to make your partner happy. And isn't that what love is all about, is wanting to see the other person happy? So, so it's important to say that healing after poly infidelity is almost exactly the same as any other kind of infidelity. It's just as heartbreaking. It's not about what was done. It's about the fact that the trust is lost. The question is, can you get back? And that is up to you and your partner. But don't blame yourself for any outcome. You're doing the best you can. Relationships are extremely tough. Tough episode, really deep and kind of sad stuff, but it needed to be said. And, we're here for support. And soon you'll have a community, a whole community for support. And I can't wait to set that up and have that community, that support community, that love community for everybody of every walk of life. And of course, monogamous people will be more than welcome, especially if they could see themselves finally falling in love with somebody who's poly. I love polymono people. They're cute. Because the thing is that I've never met like couples that know more about what they want than a polymono situation. I mean, this person is poly, knowing that the other person is not. And this person is mono, knowing that the other person is not. And it's so deliberate. It's so thought out. It's not like, oh, I'm going to see these people and what are you doing? It's like, this is what I want. I know me and I know what I want and I respect what you want. And yes, and don't get me wrong, I think that there are awesome poly relationships where both people are poly. I think there are awesome relationships where both people are monogamous. But some of the best couples I have ever seen that really truly know themselves are couples that are monopoly. They really truly seem to know exactly what they want. And it all comes down in a relationship to, what are your needs? Can this person meet it? What are their needs? Can you meet it? It's as simple as that. That's a relationship for you folks.
Relationship 101.
I mean, it doesn't get any more like, I know that it now sounds extremely unromantic, but if you want a good relationship, these are the 4 factors you need to think about and talk about. It's just about, can you and are you willing to fulfill their needs? What are they? Can they and are they willing to fulfill your needs, and what are they? It's that simple. And you will have a great time if you do that. Like, you're gonna have a good time.
You're gonna have a good time, okay?
And if you don't do these things, you're gonna have a bad
time. So, I don't know if you had anything more to add on that, but I do just want to remind people, like, you can reach out to us at any time, night or day, on Ctrl-Alt-Love. I get messages on my phone from it, so definitely reach out to us.
Please do. And, you can always find us every single Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And remember, all love is beautiful. I'll see you next week.